Early March 2025 marked a significant escalation in trade rhetoric. Former U.S. President Donald Trump announced his intention to impose substantial tariffs on Canadian goods. This move was not entirely unexpected by observers of his previous administration. Trump had often voiced concerns about trade imbalances, frequently singling out Canada. The proposed tariffs were a stark 25%, targeting a wide array of Canadian products. This action immediately sent ripples across the North American economic landscape. The timing of Trump's announcement was critical. It came during a period of delicate economic recovery for both nations. Global supply chains were still recalibrating post-pandemic, and inflation remained a persistent worry. Trump's rationale centered on leveraging American economic power to secure more favorable trade terms. He believed previous agreements, including the USMCA, still did not go far enough. Canadian officials were quick to register their dismay. Industries from agriculture to manufacturing braced for impact. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government began immediate consultations to understand the full scope of the impending measures. The potential damage to Canadian exporters and the jobs they supported was a primary concern for Ottawa. The stage was set for a robust Canadian response. The response from Canada was not monolithic. British Columbia's Premier, David Eby, stepped into the fray. He announced a bold countermeasure legislation to impose tolls targeting U.S. commercial trucks transiting through British Columbia en route to Alaska. Eby framed it as a necessary defense of BC's interests and Canadian sovereignty. Premier Eby did not mince words in his announcement. He characterized Trump's tariff threats as hostile. The proposed tolls were a tool to be held in readiness, with legislation prepared for implementation if the U.S. tariffs materialized. The proposed toll system was not designed for immediate revenue generation. Instead, its primary purpose appeared to be political. The reliance of Alaskan commerce on BC transit routes provided this leverage. While U.S. truck traffic currently passes through British Columbia to Alaska duty-free, this privilege was now under scrutiny. The message was that access could come at a cost. The details of the toll legislation were still being formulated. However, the intent was clear. It would apply to key highways used by U.S. commercial vehicles, with the Alaska Highway being the prime target. Some praised Eby's strong stance, while others worried about potential escalation and the impact on BC's own economy. The Premier, however, remained resolute. The Alaska Highway is more than just a road. It is a critical economic artery for the state of Alaska. It stretches approximately 1,390 miles from Dawson Creek in British Columbia to Fairbanks in Alaska. This historic route was constructed during World War II for strategic military purposes. Since then, it has evolved into a vital corridor, facilitating the movement of goods, services, and people. Commercial trucking operations rely heavily on this corridor to transport a wide variety of essential supplies to Alaska. The prospect of tolls on this route raised immediate concerns about logistical disruptions and increased costs for these essential deliveries. The strategic importance of the highway made it a potent bargaining chip in this unfolding trade dispute. The announcement of potential tolls sent immediate shockwaves through Alaska's business community. The state's economy, while rich in natural resources, is heavily reliant on imports for many essential goods. Transportation costs already represent a significant factor in the price of items sold in Alaska. The addition of new tolls on commercial trucking threatened to exacerbate this issue considerably. Businesses began to calculate the potential financial burden, fearing a squeeze on already tight profit margins. Alaskan officials quickly voiced their profound concerns. They understood that any increase in transportation costs would likely be passed on to consumers, leading to higher prices for everyday necessities. The proposed tolls by British Columbia ignited a flurry of political reactions. In the United States, circles close to former President Donald Trump viewed the move as an aggressive, unwarranted provocation. Trump himself, known for his robust responses to perceived slights, was reportedly briefed on the development. Sources indicated his initial reaction was one of indignation. He saw it as a direct challenge to his America First trade agenda. His team began to consider potential counter-responses. From Victoria, Premier David Eby maintained a resolute stance. He defended the toll proposal as a legitimate exercise of provincial authority. He framed it as a necessary safeguard for Canadian economic interests. Eby's strong words resonated with some Canadians. However, his approach also drew criticism from those who feared it would escalate tensions unnecessarily. In Ottawa, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's federal government found itself in a delicate position. While sharing concerns about Trump's tariffs, Trudeau adopted a more measured public tone regarding the BC tolls. He emphasized his government's goal was the removal of all tariffs. The federal government typically handles matters of international trade and relations. A provincial government taking such direct retaliatory action was unusual. Ottawa appeared to be observing the situation closely. As of early March 2025, there was no official public response from the current U.S. administration under President Biden. This silence was perhaps strategic. The dispute highlighted the complexities of the U.S. Canada relationship. Amidst the escalating trade rhetoric and toll proposals, a separate, more routine event highlighted the interconnectedness of the United States and Canada in the north. On May 18, 2025, the Little Gold Creek border crossing opened for its seasonal operations. This port of entry, between Yukon, Canada, and Alaska, USA, is the northernmost land border crossing. It serves as a crucial link for the top of the World Highway. This scenic route is popular with tourists and provides an alternative, albeit seasonal, connection. The top of the World Highway itself is a unique passage. It requires travelers to cross the Yukon River using the George Black Ferry in Dawson City. This ferry operates 24/7 from mid-May to mid-October, weather permitting. The highway and the Little Gold Creek crossing are typically open from mid-May until mid-September. For the 2025 season, the crossing was scheduled to operate from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. In the 2024 season, over 11,600 travelers entered Canada through this port. While the Little Gold Creek crossing is not a primary route for large-scale commercial freight like the Alaska Highway, its operational status is relevant. The proposed British Columbia tolls were focused on major commercial arteries. The seasonal nature and limited capacity of the top of the World Highway mean it could not absorb significant commercial diversions. The robust exchange between former President Trump and Premier David Eby did not occur in a vacuum. The U.S.-Canada relationship, often touted as the world's longest undefended border and a model of cooperation, has also experienced periods of significant strain. These historical tensions, though often overshadowed by partnership, can resurface during trade disputes or political disagreements. The early 20th century saw debates over tariffs and resource access. Later decades brought friction over issues like acid rain, softwood lumber, and cultural sovereignty. Each episode left its mark on the collective memory of both nations. During Trump's presidency from 2017 to 2021, relations faced notable challenges. His administration initiated a renegotiation of the North American Free Trade Agreement, known as NAFTA. This resulted in the USMCA. Trump imposed tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, citing national security concerns. These actions created a sense of unease and unpredictability in the relationship. The recent tariff threats and the British Columbia toll proposal can be seen as echoes of these earlier confrontations. Premier Eby's strong rhetoric taps into a deep-seated Canadian sensitivity about sovereignty. The current dispute is more than just an economic disagreement. For Alaska, the prospect of tolls on its primary land supply route was a matter of urgent concern. State officials and business leaders immediately began to explore potential mitigation strategies. They appealed to both the U.S. federal government and Canadian authorities. Emphasizing Alaska's unique vulnerabilities, they argued tolls would harm citizens and businesses. They hoped diplomatic intervention could secure exemptions for essential goods. Exploring alternative supply chains, they considered increasing reliance on sea and air transport. Sea routes through the Port of Anchorage already handle a large volume of goods. Air freight is faster but more expensive, reserved for high-value or perishable items. The Alaskan congressional delegation voiced the state's concerns in Washington, D.C. The overarching hope remained that a diplomatic solution would prevail. The dispute over British Columbia's proposed tolls and former President Trump's tariff threats has pushed U.S.-Canada relations into a period of renewed scrutiny. While the immediate crisis centers on a specific trade issue, its implications are far broader. It touches upon the fundamental nature of the partnership between two closely intertwined nations. The incident serves as a stark reminder that even the most stable relationships can be tested, particularly when faced with assertive economic nationalism and retaliatory measures. The path forward requires careful navigation from leaders on both sides of the border to avoid further escalation. The potential implementation of tolls introduces a new element of conditionality to cross-border trade. For decades, businesses have relied on relatively unfettered access for commercial transit. The Alaska Highway has been a symbol of this cooperation. If access becomes subject to retaliatory political actions, it could create a chilling effect on investment and long-term planning. Restoring trust and predictability will be paramount. This will likely involve high-level diplomatic engagement aimed at reaffirming shared commitments to free and fair trade principles. The role of key figures like Trump, Premier Eby, and Prime Minister Trudeau will continue to be pivotal. The future of U.S.-Canada relations hinges on a mutual understanding of interdependence.